Hello, everyone. Welcome to PFF Monday Night Week 1 recap. Solomon Wilcots with Austin Gayle. We're going to have a lot of fun here talking about the games that occurred on Monday night. We had a double dip, 2 Monday night games, the New Orleans Saints and the Houston Texans, and obviously the Oakland Raiders and the Denver Broncos. But we have to start down in the Big Easy in New Orleans. I thought it was going to be a good game, and this game did not disappoint. We get a game-winning field goal from Will Lutz, 58 yards. For a minute, I had a little yarn because I thought this game was over after Kenny Steele scored that touchdown. But then Will Lutz, he pulls the New Orleans Saints from defeat. They get the victory. They go on to get the win. Just let's talk about this game a little bit. What did you see? What stood out to you?
I mean, it was a brilliant finish to an overall brilliant game. I mean, you had 2 elite quarterbacks playing under center, and then you also had some elite receiving talent. DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, Michael Thomas. There's so much talent on the field. And J.J. Watt going against Ryan Ramczyk. Matchups galore. I really liked from start to finish the talent level, the competition, the matchups. A lot of good things going on. And in the end, it was really just who had the ball last. And you have Will Lutz hit hit a career-long 58-yarder to win that game. I think it could have gone either way. He could have missed that, and we were talking about the DeAndre Hopkins, that catch along the sideline.
I got to tell you, I was disappointed in the way that Romeo Crennel aligned his defense. This was what we call prevent defense, and in the end, you don't prevent anything. You certainly don't prevent your team from losing. I think they were kind of playing the fact that they didn't believe that Will Lutz could kick a field goal of 58 yards. And why would they? Because he had never done it up to this point.
Oh, and Ted Ginn. Ted Ginn made great plays down the stretch to set up that field goal. I think they obviously had a lot of attention on Michael Thomas, but Ted Ginn came up huge in this game. 7 receptions from 7 targets, really solidifying himself as kind of this number 2 receiver in New Orleans we haven't seen. It's Michael Thomas and a bunch of nobodies, but Ted Ginn coming up big there down the stretch was huge for New Orleans, helped set up that kick.
So if Ted Ginn is going to run a route, do you think he's going to stretch the field and get beyond the chains, or he's going to run a little hitch or a little slant? He's a deep threat guy. You have to be able to understand personnel, the guys who are in the opponent's huddle, and know what you're going to get from each guy. If anyone is going to go deep, if anyone's going to try to stretch the field, it's going to be Ted Ginn Jr., and that's exactly what he did. So I really thought the Houston Texans defensively, they just were not prepared for the moment.
No, not really. I think the prevent defense didn't help. Ted Ginn kind of cut him up a little bit underneath. They were a little too soft in zone coverage.
There was no pass rush.
Yeah, you got to talk about the pass rush. You have J.J. Watt there going against Ryan Ramczyk. He finished the game with 1 pressure. 1 pressure for J.J. Watt. You're going to lose a lot of games as the Houston Texans doing that. DJ Reader, the defensive interior, led this team in pressures with just 3. Larry Warford had a career game. If you can't create pass rush, Aaron Colvin and company are going to get beat in the secondary. I think the Saints did a really good job of taking what's there, specifically Drew Brees, and that's really what allowed them to take this game in the end.
Let's go back and take a look how this game unfolded for the New Orleans Saints, because they only had 3 points in the first half. That's not what you would expect from Sean Payton and a Drew Brees-led offense. And then 3 touchdowns, or I should say touchdowns on 3 consecutive possessions as they go into the second half of the ball game. They close out the game by scoring on 5 of their 6 possessions in the second half. This was an offense that got red hot. They made some adjustments. What I thought they did, they just did a better job of protecting Drew Brees. They also did a good job of mixing in the run game, whether it was Alvin Kamara, whether it was Latavius Murray. They used both backs to kind of hammer away just to keep the defense off balance, and Drew Brees got in rhythm, and this offense caught fire in the second half.
Oh, absolutely. Getting the ball into playmakers like Alvin Kamara is always going to lead to good things. That's where the big plays came. He had a great reception leading to multiple broken tackles, a big play. Latavius Murray busts off a 30-plus yard touchdown. You get those big plays rolling for New Orleans, and you allow Drew Brees to stay methodical, hit his passes, stay accurate with the football. I mean, this New Orleans Saints team can put up 30 points against anyone, 30-plus points against anyone. Really exciting to see what they did in the second half, the adjustments they made.
Yeah, the Houston Texans, 2 touchdowns in the second quarter. They had a slow start because they had punts on their first 2 possessions of the game. And then they would score a touchdown to begin the second half. And then from there, in the third quarter, the offense would go cold on 3 consecutive possessions. You get an interception, you get a punt, then you get another punt, and then they would score on that final possession in the fourth quarter. I thought Deshaun Watson, there were times when I said, okay, he's holding on to the ball too long.
Oh, yeah.
He's taking hits, I think, where the protection was good. He was just content to hold on to the ball, to allow his receivers an opportunity to uncover, and he was going to hold on to the ball at the very last minute. Even on that last strike to Kenny Stills, he kind of stepped back in knowing he was going to get hit. At that point, I said, whoa, this kid's got a lot of courage because he knows he's going to get hit. He's not trying to save his body by any stretch of the imagination and delivers a strike to Kenny Stills. But he did not have to take the pounding that we saw him incur in last night's game.
No, not at all. This is a great example of quarterbacks owning their pressure rate. Our data scientist, Eric Eager, dove in to the data he has and saw that pressure and sacks can be a quarterback trait. And you see that with Deshaun Watson. Even on that Trey Hendrickson sack that you thought ended the game, he didn't step up in the pocket. Should have stepped up in the pocket there, avoided that hit, avoided that sack, finished with 6 sacks on the day. The offensive line didn't play great. Laramie Tunsil allowed 5 pressures, but I think a lot of those were avoidable. He needs to get the ball out quickly, maneuver in the pocket a little bit better, not own his pressure rate, as Eric Eager would say.
On the last one, though, I think Tunsil was just beat.
Oh yeah. Trey Hendrickson had an insane jump. That jump was absurd.
It did make sense. Was phenomenal. And I don't care who you are. Even some of the greatest tackles that we have seen in this game, when you see a defensive end get a jump like that, if you don't get in the right position, there's no way. That speed rush is going to beat you every time. And I thought Tunsil failed him in that moment. I thought he was battling because anytime, as a former player, if you leave one locker room, the very next week you're in a different locker room, in a different environment, playing for a different team. You're in a different huddle. And you have to go out and play every snap the way that he did. It's not very easy. You're in an uncomfortable environment, unfamiliar surroundings, and yet you have to be the player that you have always been. I think that's going to take some time. I was surprised the way that Kenny Steele was able to impact the game after just a few days ago. He's a Miami Dolphin. Now he's a Houston Texan.
Yeah, with Kenny Stills, they got him involved in a little bit of end around, some gimmicky stuff. Didn't want to get him super involved, or they didn't want to, but probably couldn't get him super involved in the offense. But that deep strike for what we thought could have been the game-winning touchdown was impressive. Kenny Stills has been fast his whole career. Using him in the slot inside of Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins, it's a mismatch that I think Houston takes advantage of moving forward.
And we should just let people know, if you are an offensive tackle and, we think of what positions or maybe what players are plug-and-play guys coming from one team to another. Blocking schemes are universal. When you talk about a down block, it's the same no matter what team you're playing with. A kick-out block, it's universal. It's no change, no different in terms of the fundamentals required to execute that block from one team to another. If you are a wide receiver, now the communication and the language, yes, a 9 route is a 9 route, but how you communicate that is drastically different from one team to another. So I believe they went into this game, the Houston Texans, saying, okay, Kenny Stills, we know you don't know our playbook, but we're going to give you a package, some plays that you can run from the slot that will allow you to at least come in and make a few plays and be comfortable with those few sets of plays. So while you can see Laramie Tunsil at left tackle play the entire game on offense for the Houston Texans, we did not see Kenny Stills maybe play a large volume of snaps, but maybe playing in certain situations on offense for the Texans. Yeah,
you can expect Kenny Stills' role to increase. I know a lot of people like Kiki Kuti, but Stills, that mismatch. I mean, he's so fast, so quick out of his release. I think he, like I said, DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, that's a very good, 3 wide receiver set. I think with Laramie Tunsil, yes, he's able to get right into the mix, start that whole game. And going back to that jump from Trey Hendrickson on that sack, I think, Jeff Schwartz, former offensive lineman, saw that I tweeted out the play, and he said, no matter what, that is a hard jump to defend. And Laramie Tunsil, I think you have to give him credit for what he did. It was 5 pressures allowed, but that is a very hard block in that game, especially in that situation. Hendrickson, what a play by the kid.
Yeah, let's talk about the New Orleans Saints wide receivers and just talk to me about what you saw from them. Because going into this game, I'm thinking, okay, they've got Michael Thomas.
Yep.
We expect
a guy I love.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you could expect Ted Ginn to maybe make a play here and there. We didn't know who that third receiver would be. They spent the entire 2018 season waiting for someone to emerge. Did Traquan Smith show you enough that he could be that guy? Was he enough in this game on Monday night, and can he be enough moving forward?
I'm not sure. I want to say the New Orleans Saints' third receiver needs to be Alvin Kamara. This guy needs a ton of targets outside of Michael Thomas. Yeah, and at times he is. With Michael Thomas, had an absolute dominant showing, 4 contested targets, 4 contested receptions, including an incredible third down snag before the half ended that they reviewed. I think Ted Ginn fills in as this second role. I think he still looks like he has some juice. But if I'm throwing the third amount of targets to anybody on this team, it's Alvin Kamara. He can do so much with the ball in his hands. He can run from the slot, run at left and right wide receiver. I think you don't need to force Traquan Smith to be this third receiver. You have a great one in Alvin Kamara. Give touches to Latavius Murray on the ground and throw touches at Kamara in the air.
I like your thinking. The third receiver doesn't necessarily have to be the wide receiver.
Not at all.
It could be a tight end. It could be Jared Cook, which is why they went out and signed him. He's capable. I think he was targeted 3 times in the Monday night game. Only had 2 catches. Traquan Smith did have a touchdown. He came up big. Was able to make a play. But Alvin Kamara, I mean, last night just watching him and watching the fluidity of his game, the overall balance, no wasted steps, no wasted motions. I think he's tough in terms of coverage for a linebacker and even a safety, even a defensive back. He's tough to tackle, to get down on the ground in space. I think it was Colvin who came up and made a tackle on him late in the game in space. I was like, wow, I don't know how he was able to do that because Kamara sort of reminds me of the great Marcus Allen, a guy that's got great balance. He can run with more power than you think because he's so smooth and so fluid in his movements. A great runner, a great catcher of the ball. He can run with good motion and as I said, good fluidity, but he also can run with power. You get him around the goal line, he can power his way into the end zone. So I think he's the ultimate weapon in the backfield. I think he epitomizes what most teams want in a running back if he's going to impact your offense in both the run game and pass game.
Oh, absolutely. He's a modern NFL bell cow, similar to Christian McCaffrey. He can make a huge impact in the receiving game and an even bigger impact rushing the football. He had 8 forced missed tackles on first review here in PFF, and then also in the receiving game, 7 receptions, 72 yards. He really can do it all, and I think getting him more involved in the receiving game is where I'm at. 7 receptions is not enough. I need this guy to have 10, 12 targets a game because he's just so good in the receiving game. Such a mismatch.
Our game has changed so much when a coach, and don't want to move too much off of this game, but when a Jay Gruden with the Washington Redskins can sort of belittle the talents of the great Adrian Peterson. It's almost as if he has this bubble, this caption over his head thinking, if I had an Alvin Kamara, there's no way this player would be inactive. To not suit up in Adrian Peterson, it kind of tells you what most NFL head coaches truly want in a running back. Not a first and second down back, but one who can impact on every single play like an Alvin Kamara.
You need a mismatch, and I think putting him inactive, and obviously some of the players weren't super happy about that, but Adrian Peterson in the receiving game is no longer really a mismatch. They're hoping Darius Geis could be that guy. He obviously went down with an injury, but Adrian Peterson's coming back now that Darius Geis is hurt. I think he's going to be ready to prove some people wrong.
It's amazing, though, when the coach says, I don't need you this week, and then the next week,
I need you.
I really need you. Latavius Murray, he teamed up with Alvin Kamara in that Saints backfield, had a nice rushing touchdown. In those series of plays on that possession, I felt like the offensive line for the New Orleans Saints just kind of took over the game. They were able to get Kamara to the second level of the defense of the running game, and then Latavius Murray comes in and rips off one, going in literally untouched for a touchdown. So the offensive line kind of took over, and so how do we give Latavius Murray credit for that kind of run when the blocking was so great up front?
Well, it's not a crazy run above expectation, but it's great that he hit the hole. Great that any 30-plus yard touchdown is a great play by the running back. Good vision,
read and recognition.
Exactly, read and recognition. And with Latavius Murray, you hear Booger, saying he's not Mark Ingram, but they're very similar.
Very similar.
Latavius Murray's a lot bigger, 6'3", 220-plus pounds, and I think he can be this complement to Alvin Kamara. I think let him wear the touches inside the tackles. Give Kamara into the slot and left wide receiver. With Latavius Murray, he was running behind Larry Warford, who had an absolute career day as a run blocker, earned an elite run blocking grade from PFF here. And I think with Larry Warford there in the middle, Ryan Ramczyk having a good day, this Saints offensive line, as we expected, is one of the best in the NFL. It really is.
I think they're really good. There's no doubt about it. You can see how, and I mean, think about it. The defensive line for the Houston Texans, I mean, they're no pushover.
Oh, no, not at all.
But at times they rendered J.J. Watt invisible. They've got movement against what, as the season goes on, I think the numbers and the data will bear this out, that this defense for the Houston Texans is a really good defense. But in the second half, we already documented 5 scoring possessions on 6 possessions. They scored 5 times. They literally took over at the line of scrimmage and took over the ball game against a really good defense.
Like I said earlier, if J.J. Watt is going to finish a game with 1 pressure, it's going to be hard for this Houston Texans defense to come up in a big way.
I don't think that'll happen every week.
No, I don't think so. Not at all. I mean, Ryan Ramczyk, credit to him. And also credit to the offensive scheme. They obviously helped out with some chips and some double teams there on J.J. Watt. DJ Reader led the team with 3 pressures. Whitney Merciless had that nice interception in the red zone, but was relatively limited as a pass rusher. He's not a Jadeveon Clowney. They need him to step up. They need Watt to step up and take over these kinds of games. Aaron Colvin in the secondary, absolutely brutalized. Not a good game for him, but it's hard for a Houston Texans secondary that lacks a lot of talent. They lost Kareem Jackson to have good games when their pass rush isn't doing well. I think you're going to see that with the Houston Texans. When the pass rush isn't doing well, that secondary will suffer.
If I'm Bill O'Brien, the head coach of the Houston Texans, I'm sitting down with my quarterback, Deshaun Watson, and say, look, we spent a lot of time in the offseason talking about getting rid of the ball quickly. We've got talented receivers who can get open early in the phase of running their pass routes. I don't know that it's necessary to have to hold it to try to extend plays at the expense of taking on more and more punishment. As I was watching the Monday night game, I could not, when I watched Deshaun Watson, I could not help but think about this is exactly how Andrew Luck used to play. I love it. He's gutsy. He's gritty. He's taking one for the team just to help receivers get open. But all the while taking punishment that's not necessary. And when I saw Deshaun Watson with back pain, it seems like after every play when he made these big throws, he was wincing in pain. And I just don't know if he'll even be able to last a season, let alone be able to have that long, great career with that great talent that he has. What were your thoughts? And, I guess I'm saying that he's got to do a better job of getting rid of the football. Just kind of give me your ideas of how you think he played and what he could do better in that area.
I think Deshaun Watson does hold the ball on, did hold the ball long at times. But I think, honestly, this scheme was pushing the ball downfield, 5 and 7-step dropbacks. You compare it to what John Gruden did with the Oakland Raiders. He went into that knowing his offensive line was a weakness, got the ball out quick, 3 and 5-step drops, didn't let Derek Carr hold the ball on too long. And I think with Deshaun Watson, they need to do that. Bill O'Brien needs to go into this game saying my offensive line is a weakness. I don't have the luxury to run these deep dropbacks and let Deshaun Watson hold the ball long. With DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller, yes, you want to push the ball downfield, let plays develop, but he needs to get the ball out of his hands quickly. And I think, yes, that's on him, but it's also a little bit on the offensive scheme.
Already 6 sacks in a game where he didn't have to be sacked 6 times. He was hit a whole lot more. But there is a check. They're giving him an opportunity to check the ball down. He won't check it down. There are some quarterbacks, they're like, I don't want that. I want that. And that is a way of building within the scheme, even though we're running and designing routes that allows you to extend beyond the first down marker, that allows you to hit the stick, so to speak. That check down back is still there for quarterbacks. Tom Brady uses the check down back. You may have heard of him. A guy named James White.
I think so.
Okay, yeah, you may have heard. I mean, the top quarterbacks, whether you're Phillip Rivers, whether you're Ben Roethlisberger, they understand how you have to take advantage. So even though the routes are designed to push the ball upfield, and that's how the offense is designed in this case, they're still giving the quarterback an out. They're still saying you don't have to take hits, you still don't have to take sacks, because we're giving you a check down back. There's a guy who's protecting, he's checking and releasing, and you can get the ball to him. I'm not seeing Deshaun Watson take advantage of those opportunities to save himself from hits, to save himself from being sacked.
I think Bill O'Brien places a huge emphasis on that in practice this week and moving forward. Check the ball down. Don't hold on to the ball. And I think with Deshaun Watson moving forward, they have back, Duke Johnson's a great receiving back, great check down back. Carlos Hyde showed some juice in this game, earned a pretty decent grade from unlimited snaps. I think moving forward, Bill O'Brien will place an emphasis on this. I think Deshaun Watson can work this out, move on from that tendency of maybe holding the ball, a little bit too long, but we'll see moving forward. I think Deshaun Watson's still an elite talent when he is able to get the ball off and unscathed.
Speaking of check down backs, there were times I was like, get it to Duke Johnson. Get it to Duke Johnson. Because Duke gives them an excellent check down back that by the end of the year, if utilized, he's going to have a large volume of catches, and I think a large volume of production. I'm not saying he could be Alvin Kamara, but he can put up really good numbers. We've seen him when he's catching the ball out of the backfield. He has a tendency to make the first unblocked defender miss. Typically in the NFL, if you can make the first unblocked defender miss, you are picking up first downs.
Oh,
and that's how you keep the chains moving. If you're Deshaun Watson, though, you have to be enamored with this new trio of receivers that he has. I want to get your thoughts on it because last night, every single one of them made big plays. We already know DeAndre Hopkins can make big plays. The data point that stands out for me is that he had 3 drops.
Yeah.
Like, since when has he's had 3 drops? But you also got a big play from Will Fuller. You got a big play from Kenny Stills. Are we seeing a new trio that could be tremendously productive in 2019 for the Houston Texans?
Oh, absolutely. DeAndre Hopkins, those 3 drops are uncharacteristic and then some. There's no way you can't predict that. 3 drops is insane. But you look late in the game, potentially putting him down the sideline, beating Marshawn Lattimore up the left sideline with a great contested snag there, and then with Will Fuller, blows the doors off Eli Apple, burns him to the ground, and then underthrown ball, he's able to adjust and moss him over the top. And with Kenny Stills again, his role is going to increase. He's going to know more routes. He's going to learn the playbook. And I think him in the slot, inside of those 2 giants, is going to have some success.
Marshawn Lattimore is one of our most highest graded corners over the last couple of years here at PFF. But last night, DeAndre Hopkins was giving him the business. That just goes to show you how hard it is to play defensive back in the National Football League. Here it is, one of the top defending corners in the NFL is looking like maybe average against one of the best receivers in the NFL.
It's such a tough matchup. And Marshawn Lattimore, we forget because he graded so well as a rookie, that this is only his 3rd year in the NFL.
Exactly
He's still very young, still learning the game, learning the speed, going against greats like DeAndre Hopkins. It wasn't a terrible game. I think there are other corners, worse corners, that would have gotten exposed.
They would have wilted under that onslaught.
Exactly.
Right?
But Marshawn Lattimore held his own here and there. Obviously, gave up some receptions in a big one late in the game, but I think still going against DeAndre Hopkins, you're going to lose some routes. And I think Marshawn Lattimore maybe lost more than he won, but still an impressive game for a young cornerback that's still going against some of the best receivers in the NFL.
Just think about this. Hopkins graded out at 73.3. Not
the drops. That's going to be the drops driving it down.
Drops. A direct reflection of the drops. He was targeted 13 times, caught 8 of those passes when he was targeted for 111 yards. But you're right, the 3 drops brought that grade down. Kenny Stills was targeted 3 times, caught all 3. I think that he takes him to a whole nother level. Will Fuller has always performed well when he's been healthy. The problem is he hasn't been able to stay healthy.
Yeah, with Will Fuller, health is the biggest thing. I think he is an elite talent in the NFL.
Agreed.
Crazy speed, crazy quicks, great contested catch ability. He can have a huge impact if he plays all 16 games. With Kenny Stills, I think I'm going to temper expectations. He had a good game. I like the touchdown late. But if you look back in previous years, he has not been the guy he was with the New Orleans Saints early in his career, not with the Miami Dolphins. And now, yes, he has a good game. I want to see more from him. I want to see more from him in an expanded role with a heavier target volume.
I'm going to give him an out because I remember him coming out of college. I mean, I thought he was going to be a really good player in this league. It materialized when he was in New Orleans. And if you end up playing with Ryan Tannehill and then Jay Cutler and things can kind of go the other way. Clearly, his focus has been on maybe some other things. And maybe now that he's in Houston playing with a quarterback like Deshaun Watson, he can regain his focus. And I think with 2 guys like Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins on the outside, I think now, put it like this, if the grade doesn't come up, if the production isn't there, there'll be no excuses.
Exactly. I think you look back, he's been asked to be this number 1 receiver for in years past. Now he's the number 3 guy, and maybe even put Duke Johnson ahead of him in the target share. I like Kenny Stills, but now he's working with worst corners. He's not going to be the most focused on guy. I think he can have success being the afterthought in this Houston Texans offense.
What did you see from this Houston Texans secondary? Clear. I mean, I'm telling you, early in the game, they were giving it to the New Orleans Saints. I'm thinking, whoa, if the Texans are going to play like this all season long, we know what they have on offense. I'm thinking this could be their division. Andrew Luck retiring may have ceded the division over to the Houston Texans if the defense can perform like this.
Yeah.
And then in the second half, my question was answered. They were just getting lit up. They were providing no pressure on Drew Brees.
Not at all.
They could not cover consistently and stay with these receivers. Romeo Crennel likes to run. I don't want to say a high volume of man-to-man like, say, Wade Phillips, but he still wants to be able to lock down and play man coverage and pressure the quarterback. Once they couldn't hold up man-to-man, he didn't feel like he could blitz Drew Brees.
Exactly.
And most guys, you don't want to blitz a veteran quarterback like a Drew Brees anyway because it exposes you. So you almost have to pick your poison, and you felt like once they got into that second half and Romeo lost confidence that his corners could hold up man-to-man, he didn't send the blitz, and it's almost they just had to either die by death by 1,000 cuts slowly, or maybe the big bomb like what you saw at the end of the game where it's just a couple of plays and now you're in field goal range.
I think it starts with the pass rush. I think Romeo Crennel adjusted knowing that he was not getting any pressure on the quarterback.
Zero.
Had to adjust his coverage scheme. And with Aaron Colvin allowing over 100 receiving yards in this game, it starts with him. You cannot be a liability. Drew Brees will find you as a liability and pick on you all day.
Yeah, and he definitely did that. Even if you get linebackers, say, in coverage on a Duke Johnson, the Houston Texans are not really crazy about getting the ball to their tight ends, but we saw them beginning to factor in the early portion of the game.
Yeah.
They got it going, which I think allowed the receivers to finally get it going. If we were to talk about how the game sort of unfolded in chronological order, I thought the two tight ends, they got involved early before the receivers could get going, and then after that, everything else opened up.
Oh, yeah. They had to lean on the receivers late to kind of stay in this game. DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller are easily the two best receiving talents on this team. If you're not peppering them with targets in a shootout with Drew Brees, it's a losing battle. I think, yes, I like Jordan Akins, but you have to push targets towards DeAndre Hopkins. And even though he's going against Marshawn Lattimore, there's not a matchup I don't like with DeAndre Hopkins. He dropped some balls early, got hot late, and I think he's still – again, an elite receiver in this league. You have to go him over Akins.
I'm still looking for a corner who can cover DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, same. I
haven't found one yet. We all talk about Antonio Brown and how prolific he is. I have seen at times William Jackson III, the cornerback for the Cincinnati Bengals, lock him down. I have seen Jalen Ramsey at times go up against Antonio Brown and lock him down. Those are rare moments for Antonio Brown, so I'm not taking anything away from him. I haven't seen anyone go up against DeAndre Hopkins and lock him down. I haven't seen anyone. I haven't seen one corner say, look, I'm going to at least cut your ratio of catches when targeted down to 50%. I haven't even seen that since he's been in the NFL.
It's just such a rare combination of skills. Great size, great speed, elite contested catchability, sure-handed, can run great routes. When you can create separation like DeAndre Hopkins can and win contested catches, you're very hard to stop. And Michael Thomas is on that track. He doesn't have the same speed and quicks as DeAndre Hopkins, but the contested catchability is there. The sure-handedness is there. Both of those guys, again, some of the best receivers in the NFL.
So you think DeAndre Hopkins is putting fear into defensive back in more ways than one?
Absolutely.
Someone was body slammed last night by DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah, it looked like Monday Night Raw. I mean, Marcus Williams just getting just suplexed into the side. I think that was frustration. And some people are, why would you do that? Such a boneheaded play. I kind of liked it. I was getting excited. Monday Night Raw, I'm all in.
I mean, there was a penalty, cost us I get it.
Yeah.
But I've never seen that side of DeAndre Hopkins. He reminds me of a smaller guy. I can tell you this. I remember his rookie year, and we were broadcasting live from training camp. And obviously, we wanted to spend some time with him. We ended up talking to many of the players, and he was a first-round pick. Andre Johnson was still there. He was the incumbent, the number one receiver for the Houston Texans. And so, I went over. They said he didn't want to do the interview. And I said, well, why? They said, well, why don't you go talk to him? So I went over and introduced myself to DeAndre Hopkins. And I said, don't you want to come over and join us? We'd love to be able to talk with you and get some insights to maybe what you expect from your rookie year. He says, you know what? I have later for that. He was so humble. He says, I haven't even done anything yet.
Yeah.
Why do you guys want to talk to me? I was like, are you kidding me? I said, we're expecting you to do a lot of things. I said, come on over. We'll make it fun for you. And he did. He came over. He enjoyed it. But such humility. Here is a guy with immense talent. If you go to his parts in South Carolina, you know, where he went to Clemson. If you go back to his hometown, where he went to high school and college, he's a legend.
Really?
I mean, people have – it's like folklore. It's like stories of Bo Jackson. So many stories about Newt, about DeAndre Hopkins and the things that he's done in football games. And then for this guy to be so humble to say, you know, I don't want to do an interview yet. Let me make a few plays and then we'll talk. You don't see that a lot. From the alpha male wide receiver position in today's NFL.
Not at all. I think that's a great story, great feedback. I mean, great. What you have there on DeAndre Hopkins is spectacular. I think I'm not surprised that he's had the success he's had, knowing that. And I think the suplex then is definitely uncharacteristic. Did not see the suplex coming from DeAndre Hopkins.
Absolutely. Well, okay, let's transition and talk about the other Monday night game that took place on the West Coast. The Oakland Raiders, obviously, just swirling with controversy. This is a team that everything coming into this game, it was right in front of our eyes for the entire world to view, because this is a team that was on Hard Knocks this summer. This was a team that dealt with the soap opera drama of Antonio Brown.
Man.
Whether it was his blisters on his feet from cryotherapy, whether it's because of a helmet he didn't want to wear, maybe it's because of an argument and a little riff he had with the general manager, Mike Mayock, and then recording a phone call with the head coach, John Gruden. You can see that list.
Yeah, the list is just
getting long. But, you know, for me, even another point of conflict is to have the team captains to stand up with you as you apologize, heartfelt, to the teammates, and to not mean a single word coming out of your mouth.
Man.
Because he didn't mean it. He didn't mean it. We thought he meant it. Even the players thought he meant it. He clearly didn't mean it, because the next day he wanted out of there. And he got out of there.
Yeah.
But for the Raiders to still be able to focus the way that they did, to come out with the energy that they did, they went right down the field on the very first possession of the game. And they go the length of the field from their own 28-yard line. Derek Carr was flawless. I thought he was very focused. I thought this team was energized to play in this game. It was as if they said, you know what? We don't have to talk about it anymore. We don't have to deal with all this. We get to go out and hit somebody. We get to go out and play. And they were clearly the more physical team in this game with the Denver Broncos, and obviously come away with the win 24-16.
I think it was a big sigh of relief for this Raiders team. I think they go into this, Antonio Brown no more. We can actually just focus on football, and they did. I think with Derek Carr, he's the story of this game. I mean, he showed great command of this offense. Year two in John Gruden's system, looked very good from a clean pocket and maneuvered a bit under pressure. This guy played very well. One of the best games, honestly, of his career, playing on a high average depth of target. It wasn't check down Carr. He pushed the ball downfield. You go to that play, I think it was third and short. You know, I think it looks like he went kill out of a run, saw Tyra Williams one-on-one with Isaac Yiadom, and he was like, you know what, I'm taking this. Tyra Williams, runs a nice skinny post up top and puts the ball on a rope right to him for the first down. He doesn't make that play, I think, in year one with John Gruden. Derek Carr really took over this game, showed command of the offense, like I said, accurate with the football as we've come to expect from him. He's always ranked high in PFF's ball charting. I think with him to show this kind of play without Antonio Brown, with all the drama surrounding him, Vegas looming, I think very exciting if you're a Raiders fan right now. I think seeing Derek Carr take a huge step forward is huge for this team.
When you have the kind of completion percentage as he had in this game at 84.6%. He was dealing 22 of 26. He was pushing the ball down the field, as you said, Austin, but he was also finding the tight end. He was also distributing the ball. He got it out of his hands on check down. When he first came into this league as a rookie, his brother, David Carr, who had played for the Houston Texans, set an NFL record. I think he was sacked 70 or more times. That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot
of sacks. The kid kept getting back up. But what he told his younger brother, Derek Carr, during that rookie season when Derek came into the league. He says, you have to learn to protect yourself. Don't always put it on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Know your protection scheme. Know when there's a free runner at the quarterback. Get rid of the ball. They can't hit you if you're not holding it. And you saw this in this game. Over the course of his career, he's built upon that philosophy. Get the ball out. Know where to go with the ball. Be efficient. There was times his rookie year, he'd just throw it away. Now he's just making sure that his guy is open, and those throwaways are now completions. We saw that in the game last night. And what's more, we saw it on the very first possession when they go in for a touchdown.
Oh, absolutely. With Derek Carr in his 2016 season, what was going to be maybe an MVP year if he didn't break his leg, he was great under pressure. One of the best quarterbacks in football according to PFF's grading, accuracy percentage, all of that under pressure. He struggled under pressure in 2017 and in 2018. This game, 4 of 5, 70 yards and a big-time throw under pressure. That is huge. If Derek Carr can make plays like this under pressure, yes, it's a volatile statistic. It's hard even game over game, year over year. Derek Carr, though, if he can keep this up, is going to have another good year. He was great when he was great under pressure. I think this offensive line played well above expectation. Colton Miller and Trent Brown locked down Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. I think Derek Carr, this offense, looks so much more improved in all the right areas.
Our PFF grades show that he only had 1 touchdown, but he had 3 big-time throws in this game. None of his throws were turnover-worthy. He protected the football, made great decisions. Early in the game, we talked about it, the 10-play, 77-yard touchdown drive. And then on the third possession in the second quarter, they drive down the field and get yet another touchdown, scoring 14 points in the first half of the game. In the fourth quarter, they scored 10 more points. They dominated down inside the red zone. Josh Jacobs, the rookie running back from Alabama, didn't have huge production in this game, but he was a factor. When we talk about how does the run game fit in today's NFL, we know points come in the passing game. But I thought the way they utilized him in the game, in the Monday night game, I thought it was really telling in terms that the running game still has a place. You better be able to roll up your sleeves and punch the other team in the mouth. You better make them feel the physicality of the game. They scored 10 points in the fourth quarter of this game, but they dominated inside the red zone. And that's where they ran the ball very effectively. 4 red zone possessions, 3 touchdowns, 75% conversion rate. You are going to win a lot of games when you can be that efficient inside the red zone.
Oh, absolutely. I think the play calling was outstanding in that area. I think the offensive line dominated at the line of scrimmage, opened up some holes for first-round talent. Josh Jacobs, he forced some missed tackles on the ground, had 6 missed tackles in this game, gained some yards after contact. Where I want to see him get more involved is the receiving game. I think he's a great receiving talent coming out of Alabama. I think an underrated trait for this kid. He had a nice reception in the game. I think it was in the fourth quarter, broke a couple tackles. I need to see more of that. Get this guy involved in the passing game. Throw the ball out to him, because I think Tyra Williams looked outstanding. Darren Waller showed some flashes. Great. But outside of those two, I'm still looking for another dynamic pass catcher in this offense. I think Josh Jacobs could be it.
I heard you say you want to see more of that. Usually when you do that in games, that's when the coaches say, "Ooh, I want to see more of that too."
Yeah.
that's when John Gruden says, "I saw it in practice maybe a couple of times, but now that I saw it in the game, okay, I'm going to script that into my first 12 plays when we come out and call the game."
There you go.
Because usually a coach like Gruden, he will script the first 12 to 15 plays offensively. And once you see players make plays in game, the confidence level of the coach, of the play caller, they begin to write you in the script. And that's what happened. So he's a rookie running back, played in his very first NFL game. Maybe he showed the coaches something that they had not seen before, at least enough to raise the confidence level. Speaking of confidence level, you think Vic Fangio has any more confidence in Joe Flacco after the Monday night game?
I would say no. Joe Flacco really struggled in this one from a clean pocket. Didn't push the ball downfield. Struggled with the receiving core. I think late in the game, Cortland Sutton and Emmanuel Sanders started to have some success with Flacco throwing the football, but you need more. I think to go against a Raiders defense and struggle like they did, and there wasn't a ton of pressure. It wasn't like the Raiders were putting a ton of pressure on him. And the secondary, mismatches galore. There's a lot of areas you can attack there. I was really surprised by Joe Flacco and his struggles in Week 1. I think this is a huge concern for the Denver Broncos. You need to be able to pick that apart.
It was almost as if they were processing things slow.
Yeah, I agree.
Almost as if they, because, the pressure wasn't there. There was a few times Joe kind of felt pressure, but it really wasn't there. And had he had his vision downfield, maybe he could have made those throws. Easy for us to say sitting behind this desk. However, the offense got off to a slow start. They began with a 3-and-out on the very first possession. They had to punt on the first 2 possessions of the game. And then on 3 consecutive possessions from there, we got an 11-play drive and then a missed field goal, a 12-play drive, then a field goal, and a 10-play drive and another field goal. Now they got 6 points. They didn't get hot until the fourth quarter when they scored 10 points. But their inefficiency in the red zone, they were 1 of 4. How we talked about the Raiders being dominant inside the red zone, the Broncos were the opposite. They were 1 for 4, 25% conversion rate inside the red zone. They didn't run it very well down there. They didn't get separation from their receivers when they were down there. And certainly Joe Flacco just wasn't processing fast enough. Where we say things speed up down inside the red zone, his clock did not speed up.
And I think the defensive play calling for the Raiders in the red zone was good. I think they applied pressures in the right areas, disguised some of their their weaknesses in their defense in the red zone, and left the Denver Broncos looking for a playmaker. Obviously, the one score they did have in the red zone, the touchdown to Emmanuel Sanders against rookie Trayvon Mullen, who came in for Garyon Conley when he got hurt. That was a great play by Emmanuel Sanders, a great call by the Denver Broncos. Outside of that, they're still pulling at straws, trying to find a playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. Is it Cortland Sutton? Should we need to lean on Emmanuel Sanders?
Is it Deshaun Hamilton?
Is it? Oh man, that drop by Deshaun Hamilton wasn't
painful.
Great. It was.
And here's the deal: they almost got him out of there at that point. I didn't see him come back in. In fact, he was targeted 4 times. He had 2 catches, and Hamilton, after that drop, we didn't see much of him. You got, to me, with younger players, you got to continue to give them opportunities.
Oh yeah,
because he was making plays for younger players. They're going to be front runners a little bit. When things are going well, they're going to be feeling good. When things aren't going well, they're not going to feel good. And that's when they need veteran players and coaches to put an arm around them and say, hey, we're going to go back to you, kid. You're quick enough. You're good enough. We're going to give you another opportunity.
And this Denver Broncos offense is going to need Deshaun Hamilton to step up. You're going to need Cortland Sutton to maintain consistency and Emmanuel Sanders. But I think the Denver Broncos were left wanting with Noah Fant. First-round tight end. This guy's supposed to take over the game against a very, I would say, bad linebacking core, not an inexperienced, kind of lackluster safety unit. Noah Fant, all this athleticism. You talk about him coming out of Iowa. You love the kid, first-round talent. He needs to take over these types of games. The Raiders have been bad covering tight ends for as long as I can remember, and I think with Noah Fant not having the success we expected him to have is concerning. I think Denver needs more from him moving forward.
I think he needs to call his former teammate, the Iowa Hawkeye, who's now up in Detroit, T.J. Hawkinson. You didn't have to tell him to take over in his rookie debut,
not at
right?
all. Yeah, and with Fant too, it was more than just being a lackluster receiving target. He struggled as a run blocker.
He struggled as a blocker,
which is not great.
In the Monday night
coming
game.
out of Iowa. You need Noah Fant to have more of an impact if you're going to draft him in the first round. That's a big concern for this Denver Broncos team.
Were you happy with what you saw from Cortland Sutton? Because we know that Emmanuel Sanders can make plays. And I think Emmanuel Sanders, if he gets single coverage, he is going to eat big time against NFL defenses. Teams want to be able to double cover him, and they don't believe that the other guys can get open. But Sutton really came out, and I thought he acquitted himself really well.
He stepped up big time when there was no other options for Denver. I think he had good target volume for him, made some plays down the field. I think moving forward, you'd like to see him create more separation in one-on-ones, but if you're going to catch those contested targets over the middle and make some plays, I think catching through contact like he did, Sutton can mix. He forced, I think, multiple missed tackles in this game after the catch. Very exciting for Cortland Sutton. He's going to need to step up opposite of Emmanuel Sanders.
45 yards after the catch. Had a wonderful grade. 83.3 was his PFF overall grade. Even better than that of his teammate Emmanuel Sanders. So if he can emerge and they can get Hamilton starting to execute, and if Noah Fant really develops like we think he will, then it's going to be just up to Flacco, right?
Not great.
Flacco kind of goes through these games sort of in a daze. I mean, is it just me, or is that
it's a lot of
low energy? I think is how I would describe it.
It's a lot of speculation. I mean, I think the game script was low energy. I don't think they came off firing off the ball looking for big plays. I think they had some negative plays early, went down, punted the football, and Joe Flacco has always been average Joe, cool Joe, where he's kind of making the plays you want him to make, but not necessarily making wow plays like we saw from Drew Brees and Deshaun Watson. He's not those guys.
See, that's why I said it, because I think most people, you hear someone say that someone might think it's overly critical. Why does his energy seem to be a problem? Why is that even a talking point? Take a look at other quarterbacks around the NFL. There are moments in games where you bring energy into the huddle for the other 10 guys. I'm talking about the quarterback specifically, okay, where your energy is going to be mimicked by the other 10 guys in the huddle. They're filling the energy that you're omitting in the huddle and just what you bring to the table when you break the huddle. Okay, that kind of energy. Tom Brady, as cool as he can be, Tom Brady brings a certain energy at certain moments in the game. When we talk about tempo, in rhythm, getting out of the huddle, up to the line of scrimmage, coming off the ball. You see quarterbacks saying, okay, guys, let's pick it up. Let's pick up the tempo. It all starts with them. And I don't see Joe Flacco bringing that to his football team. That's the reason why John Elway went with Joe Flacco. He wanted a veteran presence who understood the ins and outs of a game, who's got a big-time arm, which Joe does. But you also have to understand there are times when you have to bring an energy and a tempo to the offense that the defense can't match. I didn't see that from Flacco in the Monday night game.
I also think it's a little bit more than energy, too. I think in addition to energy, it's aggressiveness. You need to be aggressive with the football, especially when the Denver Broncos don't have elite receiving talents that can create after the catch. Cortland Sutton played well above expectation after the catch. You're not going to expect that every week. Noah Fant needs to step up. But again, with Joe Flacco pushing the ball downfield, being more aggressive, trying to fit it into tight windows is how this Denver Broncos team is going to win games and move the ball offensively. If he doesn't do that, it's going to be very hard for this Broncos team to win. They just don't have the receiving talent and the playmaking talent to do that, to live with an average Joe with low energy and conservative play.
What did you see from the Denver Broncos defensively?
Where's Von Miller and Bradley Chubb? You're going against Colton Miller and Trent Brown. Yes, Trent Brown is the highest paid offensive tackle in the NFL, but he's not the best offensive tackle in the NFL. Von Miller needs to step up. Bradley Chubb needs to make some plays. And on the interior, Gotsis, Derek Wolfe, both didn't have great games against backup offensive linemen, Denzel Good and Jordan Devey. These guys, this Denver Broncos defensive line struggled significantly, allowing the Raiders to pick their poison in the secondary. Fangio has to be so upset with this defense. I mean, that defensive line struggled to create pressure.
Vic Fangio is an excellent defensive coach. We don't know what kind of head coach he is. And sometimes when you go from coordinator on either side of the ball, but especially defensive coordinator to becoming a head coach, you take on other areas of the team that you now have to manage. So what happens is you would cede over the area of control where you were so good at running a defense, at designing the defense, and at being able to make those adjustments. Now you're having to manage the game as the head coach, the timeouts, the clock, make sure that the offense is doing things right, special teams, that everything is kind of keeping the trains running on time, right, as a head coach. And now sometimes by default, that area where you were so good at managing, it takes a step backwards. And now, he never ran this particular defense, but we expected under Fangio that this defense would take a huge step forward. We did not see that in the Monday night game.
And maybe, it's all speculation, but maybe Fangio, the attention to detail dives down because he's in such of a bigger management role.
He's got to manage other areas.
Exactly. Without being that attention to detail on the defensive line. In the secondary, this team was without Bryce Callahan, who Fangio had a lot of success with in Chicago. That was a concern. Right. Forcing Yadam to play significant snaps and struggling. I think this defense needs Von Miller to step up. If you can't take over games as Von Miller against this offensive line, this defense is always going to struggle. You can't just rely on Chris Harris Jr. to be the only guy in the secondary that can make plays. I think they need a pass rush for this defense to have success, similar to how Fangio's Bears defense needed a pass rush to have success. Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks, and all that.
I saw Bradley Roby in the early game playing for the Houston Texans, and then I saw Yadam in this game for the Denver Broncos thinking, they could use Bradley Roby right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Yadam was honestly exposed. It was really bad. I think Gruden went into this game knowing, don't throw to Chris Harris Jr., throw to Yadam, and watch the success pour in. He allowed over 100 yards receiving, multiple first downs, really couldn't catch a break. And I think that is a great offensive play calling by John Gruden, knowing the mismatch, knowing who to take advantage of. And Tyrell Williams, maybe not an elite receiving talent, but he's going to win those matchups 9 times out of 10.
Tyra Williams, really nice size body. He can high point the ball. I saw him do some of these things with the LA Chargers early in his career. I remember when the Raiders signed him in free agency, I'm thinking, I didn't know what we would get from him because he was inconsistent at times when he was with the Chargers. But in the wake of all of the Antonio Brown noise and then the absence of Antonio Brown, everyone was asking, what are they going to do without Antonio Brown? Well, they never really had him, right? Derek Carr really never had him in the huddle, never played with him in a single
AB went to
game.
his house.
The guy who he was throwing to in all these practices and all the preseason games and scrimmages was Williams.
Exactly.
And it showed in the Monday night game.
It was great rapport, and I think Tyra Williams had success, ran some good routes, I think stretched the field well, but I have to go back to Derek Carr. The ball placement on these throws it was incredible. I think deep down the field on that 3rd and short, great ball placement there. That was a big-time throw.
It was great.
And in the 4th, down towards the end of the game, getting that in the end zone, or near the end zone to Tyrell Williams, high point in that ball. I think, again, Derek Carr had an insane game. It cannot be talked about enough. He played very well, great accuracy with the football, played well from a pressured pocket, played well from a clean pocket. This kind of success from Derek Carr makes this Raiders team a lot better and significantly better.
See, I didn't always see Tyrell Williams come down with those throws when Phillip Rivers would high point the ball the same way. And it's something to be said about the growth and the development of players when they get with another team and they get with another coach. He's from the Bay Area. He wanted to go back to his hometown and play, even though he's going to end up in Vegas. But that's a story for another day, right? But you could tell there's a sense of pride in him and another sense of effort and energy that I did not see from Terrell Williams when he was with the Chargers, and I saw it in the Monday night game. He went and high-pointed the ball. You talked about it. He had 45 yards after the catch. 5 of his 6 receptions converted into first downs. This was a guy that I'm not so sure that the numbers – well, I'm certain that the numbers for Carr don't look the same if Terrell Williams doesn't come out and play the way that he did.
And you talk about John Gruden looking at some of these players and saying, man, I want to get this guy involved more early. He saw Tyrell Williams, and he's ready to throw everything he can at him in this next game. I think Tyrell Williams was known to be the number 1 wide receiver, but he proved that in week 1. I think he's going to continue to see a high volume of targets alongside Darren Waller. I think they still like Waller a ton, but I think Tyrell Williams is going to be the guy, that number 1 guy. Darren
Waller, we saw him in Hard Knocks. This is a guy that's been through a lot. He's been through some hard knocks, so to speak. and no, he has. And now he's put it together. And if he can keep it together and really stay locked in, he could develop into something truly special, because I saw him at times last night, whether it was man coverage, he's able to shake loose and still be able to dominate. Whether it's in zone coverage, he's a big body presence that presents a big target for Derek Carr. He has excellent hands, and he can move really well for a man who's very big. He was targeted 8 times, 7 receptions for 70 yards, and 32 of those yards came after the catch. So he's a catch-and-run guy at the tight end position.
He's a mismatch weapon. I love the Raiders' usage of him. They split him out a little bit out wide, played him at inline tight end. They're going to get creative with his usage because he's got the body of a wide receiver. He's a tall, athletic, speedy frame, and I think he looks very good for the Oakland Raiders. There's a lot of hype on him coming out of Hard Knocks. A lot of people like this guy as a fantasy breakout. He broke out a bit. I think he's going to get used a ton in this offense, and he proved to be quite the mismatch nightmare. Safeties and linebackers are going to struggle with this kid.
As we wrap up the show, talk about the both losing teams. Houston Texans. Did they bounce back from this? Can they come back and go on a run after this loss?
I think Houston Texans bounce back if Deshaun Watson's able to move forward a little bit, and I think listen to Bill O'Brien, not hold the ball on too long, and I think moving like that, I think Deshaun Watson has so much talent. This offensive line isn't great, but he has so much talent at receiver that this Houston Texans team is going to be pretty good. The defense needs to pick up some slack as well.
Houston Texans have improved. I like Kenny Stills' addition to the offense, Laramie Tunsil's addition to the offense. One of the additions maybe we didn't talk enough about was the addition of Carlos Hyde.
Yeah.
Because if he runs like that, I like Carlos Hyde.
Yeah.
If he runs like he did when he was in San Francisco, not so much. But if he keeps
some
running
juice.
like this, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, he showed some juice. I think he'll maybe steal some touches away from Duke Johnson
Yeah.
again, like Carlos Hyde did in Cleveland, which is, I mean, I love Duke Johnson. I just don't think, again, Carlos Hyde looked great, small sample size, but he looked great. I still want to see more touches for Duke Johnson moving forward.
10 carries for Carlos Hyde, 83 rush yards. 8.3 yards per carry.
That's a high.
So
that's a high YPC.
He
Okay?
looked
That's
pretty good. Now we want to see it every week.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get excited. So, how about the Denver Broncos?
Man,
do we inject some energy into this team moving
I think
forward?
offensively, you need energy, you need aggressiveness from Joe Flacco, and I think they can put up more points than they did against Oakland. Defensively, if Von Miller and Bradley Chubb play like they did against Oakland, this defense is going to struggle. The secondary is a weakness outside of Chris Harris Jr. Von Miller is the strength, is this defense. I think he needs to step up. Fangio needs to prioritize the pass rush this upcoming week if this defense is going to turn around, and they're going to have to play well. Joe Flacco is never going to be a high-scoring quarterback like Drew Brees and Deshaun Watson. They're going to need to play well for this Denver Broncos team to have success.
All right. Well, you and I are going to be here every Tuesday morning.
Can't wait. I had fun
following
today.
the Monday night game, where we'll recap the Monday night game right here on PFF TV on our YouTube channel. You can go to get more great content by going to PFF.com. This is our Monday night recap of Week 1. Solomon Wilcots and Austin Gayle signing off.